I knew the moment I decided to let Serenity stay over in my boss's sprawling Bellevue mansion that I was risking everything I'd worked for. But the way her eyes lit up when she saw the view from the balcony made me ignore the voice in my head warning of the inevitable fallout. That hidden lesbian relationship, born from stolen moments and whispered confessions, was about to collide with reality when Elena Voss cut her trip short and walked in on us 2 weeks ahead of schedule, turning my carefully guarded secret into a battlefield of betrayal and impossible choices. It had all started innocently enough 3 weeks earlier when Elena, the no-nonsense CEO of Voss Tech, handed me the keys to her waterfront home with a brisk smile. "Aspen, you're the only one I trust with this place while I'm in London closing that merger," she said, her designer heels clicking on the marble foyer. At 28, I'd been her executive assistant for 2 years, always the reliable one who never complained about late nights or impossible deadlines. But inside, I was crumbling under the weight of expectations I could never voice. My parents back in Austin still called every Sunday, asking when I'd finally settle down with Jake, my high school boyfriend turned perfect match in their eyes. They sent photos of engagement rings and family dinners, oblivious to the truth I'd buried since college. The way my heart raced around women, not men. House sitting felt like a temporary escape, a chance to breathe in a place where no one knew me. The first night alone in the mansion, I wandered the glass-walled living room overlooking Lake Washington, the city lights twinkling like distant stars. Loneliness hit hard. On impulse, I scrolled through old contacts and messaged Serenity, the artist I'd met at a Seattle gallery opening last year. We'd clicked instantly over cheap wine and shared stories of creative dreams crushed by reality. "Hey, crazy idea," I typed. "Want to crash here for a few days? Boss is gone, place is huge." Her reply came fast. "On my way. Need inspiration, and your timing is perfect." When she arrived the next afternoon, her blonde hair catching the sunlight as she stepped out of her beat-up Subaru, something shifted in me. Serenity was 27, free-spirited in paint-splattered jeans and a vintage band tee, her blue eyes holding a quiet strength I'd always envied. We spent the evening on the terrace, wine glasses in hand, talking about everything and nothing. She told me about her last exhibition, how galleries kept rejecting her bold pieces because they were too queer. I laughed it off, but inside, her words stirred the fear I'd carried since my freshman year when a dorm mate's casual comment about those girls made me shrink back into the closet. By midnight, we were laughing over old college stories, her hand brushing mine as she reached for the bottle. The touch lingered a second too long. "Aspen, you seem different here," she said softly. "Like you're finally yourself." I froze, the words hitting too close. That night, I lay awake in the guest room, heart pounding, wondering if inviting her had been the first crack in my carefully built wall. The next days blurred into a rhythm I hadn't known I needed. Mornings, I'd make coffee in Elena's state-of-the-art kitchen while Serenity sketched by the floor-to-ceiling windows. Afternoons, we'd walk the garden paths, her stories pulling me deeper. She spoke openly about the family that had cut her off at 18 when she came out, the years of scraping by on freelance gigs, and the quiet pride in living her truth. "I don't hide anymore," she said one evening as rain pattered on the roof. "It cost me everything, but it gave me me." I nodded, swallowing the lump in my throat. My own truth felt like a bomb waiting to detonate. That Sunday my mom called, her voice bright with news of Jake's promotion. "Honey, when are you bringing him home? Your dad misses you both." I lied smoothly, blaming work, but Serenity watched from the couch, her expression unreadable. The guilt gnawed at me. By the end of the week, we'd shared more than laughs. Over dinner on the patio, I admitted it for the first time out loud. "I've never felt this seen with anyone. Not even Jake." Her smile was gentle. "Then stop running, Aspen." The air between us thickened, but I pulled back, terrified of what crossing that line meant. Still, the seed was planted, and as I fell asleep that night, the mansion no longer felt empty. It felt alive with possibility, even if the price was a secret I wasn't sure I could keep. By the second week, the mansion had become our private world, a bubble where the outside pressures couldn't reach. Yet every shared glance carried the weight of what we were building in shadows. Serenity's presence turned the sterile luxury into something warm and real, her laughter echoing off the high ceilings as we cooked simple meals in the gourmet kitchen, or watched old movies curled on the oversized sectional. But beneath the joy, my inner conflict raged louder each day. I was falling hard for a woman whose openness terrified me, knowing one slip could destroy the career I'd clawed for, and the family approval I still craved like air. One rainy Thursday, we sat cross-legged on the Persian rug in the library, surrounded by Elena's untouched books. Serenity sketched my profile while I rambled about the latest work email from London. "You're always so put together for her," she observed, pencil pausing. "But with me, you let the mask drop." I met her eyes, the honesty in them pulling at something deep. For hours we talked about the cost of truth. She described the night her parents changed the locks, the years of holidays alone, the therapy that finally taught her self-worth wasn't tied to their love. "It hurt like hell," she said, voice steady, "but pretending hurt more." My chest tightened. I told her about Austin, the Sunday potlucks where my aunts grilled me on dating, the way my dad once said, "Real women build families the right way." Admitting my feelings for women had always felt like betrayal to them. Serenity reached across the rug, her fingers intertwining with mine. "You don't have to choose their version anymore." The touch sent electricity through me, but I pulled away again, mumbling about Elena's return date. That night, sleep evaded me as I paced the master suite balcony, the lake wind cold on my face. Was this love worth the risk? One wrong move and I'd lose the promotion Elena hinted at, the stability my parents banked on. The tension broke the next evening. We'd spent the day at a nearby art fair, Serenity's hand occasionally brushing mine in the crowd, hidden from prying eyes. Back home we collapsed on the couch with takeout, the city lights sparkling beyond the windows. "I can't keep dancing around this," she said suddenly, setting her plate aside. Her voice was soft but resolute. "Aspen, I feel it too. The way you look at me when you think I'm not noticing." My heart hammered. Years of denial crashed down as I whispered, "I do. God, I do." The kiss that followed was tentative at first, her lips warm and certain against mine, tasting of salt from the food and the promise of everything I'd denied. It wasn't rushed or dramatic. It was real, filled with the quiet relief of finally letting go. We pulled back, foreheads touching, breathing the same air. "What now?" I asked, voice trembling. She smiled. "We figure it out together. No more hiding from each other, at least." That night we fell asleep entwined on the couch, her head on my chest, and for the first time the mansion felt like home. But in the quiet hours before dawn, doubt crept back. My phone buzzed with a text from Mom. "Jake asked about you again. Don't keep him waiting, sweetie." I deleted it without replying, but the guilt settled like lead in my stomach. Serenity stirred beside me, murmuring something about dreams, and I held her closer, knowing the clock was ticking toward Elena's return. The relationship was no longer just a spark. It was a fire I had to protect, even as the world outside pressed in with its judgments and demands. The days after that first kiss stretched into a fragile paradise laced with mounting dread, each shared moment deepening our bond while my moral dilemmas gnawed at the edges like invisible teeth. We moved through the mansion like partners in a secret dance, cooking breakfast together and sunlight streaming through the kitchen island, her arms wrapping around me from behind as I flipped pancakes. Serenity's laughter became my anchor, her stories of gallery struggles mirroring my own quiet battles at Vostek. Yet every decision to keep this hidden carried a price I felt in my bones. The lie to Elena, the betrayal of my family's dreams, the fear that one day the prejudice I'd seen in news stories and whispered office gossip would land squarely on us. Midweek we drove into Seattle for supplies, her hand resting on my knee in the car, a small act that felt revolutionary. At the market we played it straight, but back home the walls came down. Over coffee on the terrace I confessed the full weight. "Elena trusts me completely." If she knew, she'd see it as a violation of that trust. Serenity nodded, her expression thoughtful. "And your family? They still push Jake like he's the answer." I sighed, staring at the water. The moral tangle tightened. Was loving her selfish if it meant shattering the stability I'd built for everyone else? That afternoon we planned in hushed tones, dreaming of a future where I could come out on my terms, maybe after the promotion, maybe when my parents softened. "We'll find a way," she promised, pulling me into another kiss that lingered with sweet certainty. But later, when Elena's video call came through for a status update, I answered from the study alone, Voice steady as I lied about the quiet house. Serenity waited in the hallway, out of frame, her presence a silent reminder of the double life. The call ended, and I sank into the chair, hands shaking. I hate this, I admitted when she joined me, feeling like I'm stealing time. She held me, whispering, "It's not stealing if it's survival." Her words offered comfort, but the inner storm raged. How long before the choices caught up? The weekend brought a close call that spiked the tension. My parents surprised me with a video call while Serenity and I were curled up in the media room. I muted the TV and stepped into the hall, forcing a smile as they chattered about church events and Jake's new job. "You sound happy, Aspen," Mom said. "Must be that big house." I laughed it off, but Serenity's shadow in the doorway made my pulse race. Hanging up, I turned to her, tears pricking my eyes. They'd never accept this. They'd call it a phase or worse. The confrontation with my own hypocrisy hit hard. I'd preached honesty in small ways but lived the lie daily. That night, over a quiet dinner, we faced it head-on. "I want to be brave like you," I told her. "But the cost feels too high right now." Serenity's eyes softened with understanding, yet I saw the flicker of hurt. "Love isn't free, Aspen. But neither is pretending." We held each other through the evening, the mansion's silence amplifying every heartbeat. The relationship had evolved into something profound, a partnership testing my limits, but the social pressures and family shadows loomed larger, forcing me to weigh every word, every touch against the world that wouldn't understand. Elena's return date loomed like a deadline, and deep down, I knew the bubble was about to burst. The front door clicked open at 2 in the morning, shattering the peace we'd built, and there stood Elena Voss in her travel-worn coat, suitcase thudding to the floor as her sharp eyes widened at the sight of Serenity, and me tangled on the couch in a quiet embrace. "Aspen." Her voice cracked like a whip through the dim living room, the shock on her face twisting into something colder. "What the hell is this?" In that frozen second, the hidden world I'd guarded collapsed. The lesbian relationship I'd risked everything for exposed under the harsh light of her unexpected early return from London. I scrambled upright, heart slamming against my ribs, while Serenity stayed seated, her hand still on my arm in silent support. Elena's gaze flicked between us, processing the scene. The half-empty wine glasses, the rumpled blanket, the unmistakable intimacy. "I came back early because the deal fell through," she said, voice rising. "And this is what I find. You turning my home into whatever this is." The accusation landed like a slap. I tried to explain, words tumbling out in a rush. "Elena, it's not what you think. It happened." But the lie tasted bitter even as it left my mouth. Serenity's eyes met mine, a quiet plea not to deny us. Elena paced, her heels echoing. "I trusted you with my house, my privacy. You're my assistant, Aspen. This crosses every line." The confrontation escalated as she demanded details, her face flushed with betrayal. "How long?" "Under my roof." I admitted the weeks, the growing feelings, my voice breaking under the weight. She fired me on the spot, voice steady but laced with disappointment. "Pack your things. Both of you. I won't have this in my life." The words stung deeper than unemployment. It was the judgment I'd feared, the professional world slamming shut because of who I loved. Serenity stood then, calm but firm. "This isn't about your house, Elena. It's about two people who found something real." Elena's laugh was sharp. "Real? In my absence? Aspen, your parents would be devastated." The mention of my family twisted the knife, and in the heat of the moment, panic made me waver. "It's complicated," I muttered, avoiding Serenity's gaze. That small betrayal hung in the air as Elena stormed upstairs, leaving us to gather our things in stunned silence. The drive to Serenity's small apartment downtown was tense, the city lights blurring through tears. "You hesitated," she said quietly once we arrived. "After everything we talked about." I reached for her hand, but she pulled away. The cost was immediate. My job gone, reputation at risk, and now the woman I loved questioning my courage. That night, alone on her couch, I replayed the scene, the inner conflict exploding into full view. Choices had consequences, and this one had just shattered my world. The fallout spread like cracks in glass over the following days. each conversation peeling back layers of prejudice and forcing me to confront the human price of the secret I'd kept too long. Serenity's apartment became our temporary refuge, but the space between us grew as she processed my hesitation during Elena's confrontation. "You made it sound like a mistake," she said one morning over cold coffee, her voice steady but eyes distant. "After promising we'd face it together." The betrayal stung her deeply, a mirror to the family rejection she'd survived, and I spent hours apologizing, explaining the panic, the fear of losing everything at once. Yet words felt hollow against the hurt. I had chosen the easy out in that moment, and now I paid for it in her guarded glances and sleepless nights. Worse came when my phone lit up with calls from Austin. Elena, in her efficiency, had emailed my parents as a courtesy, framing it as concern for my well-being. Mom's voice on the line was ice. "Aspen, what is this nonsense about you and some woman? Jake's been waiting and now this." Dad's disappointment followed, a long lecture on values and the family name. The confrontation via video call was brutal. They demanded I come home, fix this phase, threatening to cut financial support for my student loans if I didn't. Prejudice poured out in familiar phrases about the lifestyle and what people will say. I sat in Serenity's living room, tears streaming, defending us for the first time aloud. "This isn't a phase. Serenity makes me feel alive." But their silence and eventual hang-up left me hollow. Socially, texts from old colleagues trickled in with vague, concerned messages, whispers of office gossip already spreading. The isolation hit hard. Friends distanced themselves, citing drama at work. Serenity and I faced our own reckoning that evening. "I can't be your secret anymore," she said, packing a bag as if ready to leave. "I've lost family once. I won't lose myself again." The moment crystallized the dilemma. Fight for us or let societal pressure win. I begged her to stay, pouring out the awakening that had been building. "You're right. I was wrong to waver. This love is worth the fight." She paused, searching my face, and slowly set the bag down. We talked through the night, mapping the damage. My career in ruins, family ties frayed, her trust shaken. Yet in the raw honesty, a new strength emerged. The next day brought another blow when Elena texted a final warning. "Stay away from the company events. Your choices have consequences." The words reinforced the social cost, but holding Serenity's hand through it all shifted something inside me. The betrayals and losses mounted, yet they clarified what mattered. I was done hiding. The question now was whether the world would let us rebuild. Weeks turned into a hard-fought new normal as I pieced together freelance work and Serenity returned to her gallery submissions. Our relationship no longer shadowed, but tested by the scars of exposure and the ongoing battles with family and society. The final confrontation came when Elena agreed to a coffee meeting at a neutral cafe downtown. Her expression guarded but less icy. "I didn't fire you out of hate, Aspen," she admitted over lattes. "But professionalism matters, and you broke that trust in my own home." I owned every part of it, explaining the inner turmoil, the family pressures that had kept me silent for years. "It wasn't about disrespecting you. It was about finally choosing myself." To my surprise, she softened slightly, sharing her own story of a sister who'd faced similar judgments decades ago. "Society doesn't change overnight," she said. "But firing you was my line. Don't expect references." The exchange ended without reconciliation. Yet it closed a chapter, forcing me to accept the career sacrifice as the price of authenticity. Back at the apartment, my parents' last call sealed the family rift. "We love you but we can't support this," Dad said flatly. The cutoff hurt like a wound. Yet Serenity held me through the tears, her own history making her the steady rock. "They might come around," she whispered. "Or they might not. Either way you've got me." The awakening crystallized in that moment. The moral choice wasn't conformity or secrecy. It was claiming the love that felt true despite the costs. We stepped out together more openly, hand in hand at local events, facing stares and occasional whispers, but also quiet nods from strangers who understood. The drama had stripped away illusions, revealing the strength in our bond and the resilience needed to navigate prejudice. In the end, was Aspen's decision to finally stop hiding her love for Serenity the right one? Despite losing her career and family support, Or did society's prejudices make conformity the only moral choice?